For years, people have had their chance to tell their side of the story. And now it's my turn. And now that everybody's on the record telling their side of the story, somebody needs to be able to connect all the dots with all that evidence that is the irrefutable statement of what actually transpired between me and the McMahons while I had my career in the WWF.
Welcome to the next century of wrestling news, commentary, and entertainment, presenting the truth to expose the lies and show you the full context of wrestling. Because there's two sides for many of these situations. Each episode of the Ultimate Responses series features content you won't hear anywhere else. So thank you for listening.
Warrior did not. I always thought Warrior was one of the most overrated talents that I ever called a match for. He was so wrapped up in his philosophy of life, the warrior life, that he changed his name. I don't know if he's a warrior, or is he the warrior, or he's just warrior. I don't have a clue. The Ultimate Warrior's interviews really needed to be subtitled, and they needed to be, so they could be, interpreted to the normal human being. A lot of things, a lot of boxes that Warrior checked. But being a great worker was not one of them. You can't beat him. He can't lose well. Warrior's not a good enough worker to know how to lose and protect himself. This son of a bitch had no respect for anybody.
Jim Ross is an insecure, unhappy person who tries to trash more successful people to feel important. However, it never works, which is why he always looks like he has a problem with something. The problem is, he's bitter. Another problem is, he lies. And we want to play you an example of that to start this episode. So here is what JR said in 2014 about Warrior.
But I never really got to know him even in UWF, so I never had a relationship with him, good, bad, or indifferent.
JR is lying when he says he had no opinion of Warrior, but when those comments were made, he was with the WWE, and Warrior just passed away. So he chose to lie and not say how he really felt. Now, years later, he seems to feel it's okay to express his true feelings. So he uses his podcast to get attention by saying stuff like this.
This son of a bitch had no respect for anybody.
Many internet sites were quick to use that quote from JR as a headline to support their attacks against Warrior. But they never mentioned that it was a contradiction. As JR initially stated, he didn't know Warrior well enough to have an opinion of him. As it turns out, he has tons of opinions, and they're all based upon lies. So how exactly does JR get from this?
So I never had a relationship with him, good, bad, or indifferent.
To that.
This son of a bitch had no respect for anybody.
As some of his fans point out, Ross turns any topic into an excuse to lie about or insult Warrior, or to mention his hero, Bill Watts. And that is where JR's hatred for Warrior began. When Warrior and Sting made their tag team and went to Watts' promotion, where Watts basically paid wrestlers to lose to him, and where Warrior refused to tolerate Watts' immature abuse. So while JR likes to lie about how Watts fired Warrior, here is Warrior telling why he went to that promotion, how it was there, and why he left.
Steve got hurt, and it sort of coincided with them wondering how they could use us because we were so big, and they didn't have any big guys there. And a call was made to Watts, and Watts had bigger guys down there. We stayed in Tennessee a while for Steve to heal up, and then we headed down to Alexandria, Louisiana. Right. It was seemed like a more a tenser locker room attitude. They gave us Eddie Gilbert, and Eddie was a company man. He believed in not ruffling any feathers and doing what they told you to do. And that was okay up to a certain point with me, but when it didn't make sense anymore, I didn't have the personality to take it. I didn't like to be handled that way. And there was one instance where we're in the locker room in Oklahoma City or Tulsa where Watts came back and ordered me to get down on all fours. He wanted to show me how to work a kick, he said, into the ribs. Well, I'd already heard the story that what he does is he gets the talent down into a disadvantageous position, and then he doesn't work the kick. He really throws it in and tries to break your ribs. And I told him that if he wanted me to go down on all fours, then he was going to have to put me down. And everybody in the locker room was really stunned. And then later, of course, after he had left and didn't take me up on my challenge, Eddie chastised us that, you're not going to go very far in the business if you continue to do that.
Cowboy saw nothing in Warrior, which is hard to maybe fathom or process for some people. Cowboy wanted guys that could work, and he wanted tough guys. He didn't believe that Warrior was either of those two things.
Why don't you tell the truth, JR? Watts tried to intimidate Warrior, but was too scared to stay when it didn't work. And unlike what you claim, he must have thought Warrior was tough, because when Warrior confronted him, he ran away. And that's what this whole thing is about, isn't it, JR? Warrior humiliated your hero and mentor, Cowboy Bill. And 40 years later, you're not over it. So you use the internet to take cowardly cheap shots at Warrior, as well as other wrestlers you feel didn't pay enough attention to you when you were put in charge of talent. And it's no coincidence that the same wrestlers who bypassed you then to deal straight with Vince are the same wrestlers you criticize now. Well, you had your fun whining for the past few years, but for you and the rest of the haters, the truth hurts. So here's some more.
I came in the business in '87. In 1990, I had a match with Hulk Hogan, who was the only superstar and still will be the only, real super household name. I had a match with him where he dropped the strap to me in the middle of the ring. Right. The best thing I did was not pay attention to what everybody else was doing.
Warrior went to Texas, where he came up with the Warrior persona. Then went to the WWE, where he became the top name in the wrestling industry. Meanwhile, fans were tired of Cowboy Bill's wrestling shows, and the promotion lost money. So Cowboy Bill and his trusty sidekick, JR, went to WCW, where they were both fired, because Cowboy Bill couldn't keep his cowboy mouth shut, sending JR to the WWE, where he was put in charge of talent relations. And when Warrior returned in the late 90s, he had a meeting with the McMahons to plan everything. Well, JR was also there, and it apparently traumatized him so much that it upsets him to talk about it.
I remember Vince, Linda, myself, and I think Cornette actually, and Brucey, right, went to Arizona. And I never heard so much foul language. And look, we're guys sometimes and, curse and the F-bombs and stuff. But I try. When I'm around somebody's wife, different ball game, man. It showed me this son of a bitch had no respect for anybody, including women. Linda McMahon is as nice a person as I ever worked with, ever. Sweetheart of a woman. But for him to do the F-bomb, the C word, and this and that and the other, I lost all respect on that meeting.
Without the context of that conversation, we're not sure why Warrior said that word or if he said that word in that meeting. But we do know it did not bother Vince, who was Linda's husband. And more importantly, it did not bother Linda, who was friends with Warrior and inducted him into the Hall of Fame. And JR, if you really are such a champion for women, or if you were so concerned for Linda, why did you stay in that company for years? Do you have any idea how Vince was treating women? Or what he put Linda through? She was literally in tears in the steroid trial when Vince's plaything took to the stand to tell everyone about her relationship with Vince. Where was your concern for Linda then? Because you chose to stay and then kiss McMahon's ass for many, many years after it happened. And what about your pal Stone Cold, who pled no contest to spouse abuse? Where was your outrage? Or is that not something you want your listeners to bring up? And we won't even get into your own relationships with women or your behavior in those relationships. So to recap, Vince abuses women for decades. You were fine there. Austin hits women. You have no insults for him. But Warrior says a word you don't like in front of a woman, and he's a son of a bitch with no respect for anybody? Hello, hypocrisy. You have things in reverse as usual, JR. You're the son of a bitch, who continues to show absolutely no respect for wrestlers not here anymore, like Warrior and Savage. So when you attack them, it shows you have no class, no room to criticize Warrior, and nothing to offer your podcast listeners, besides more pathetic bitterness. And if you look at their comments on YouTube, they don't want to hear it either. Okay, we know JR isn't well physically or mentally, but that's really no excuse to lie and hurt the reputation of wrestlers with irresponsible or ridiculous comments like these.
But that's what he was. He was no show in towns, all that. And of course he had assistants, and assistants had assistants. They got his schedule several days in advance, and he just ignored them, or he didn't like the town because he didn't draw the last time he was there. He ain't going. So it was terrible.
JR made that whole thing up. Warrior drew fine when he returned. It's easy to see from the footage of Raw episodes, house shows, and the pay-per-views. But JR never gives any specifics. Which towns did he not draw in? Who are these assistants? Warrior did not show up at shows because Vince breached another contract. The case went to the courts, and he won. That's it. So when JR lies about these things, some of the people listening buy into it, and that is what he wants, as he does this all of the time with his portly co-host, Conman Chompson, for their podcast every show. Listen to how JR tries to admit Warrior was over, yet manages to insult fans in the process with this telling comment.
Warrior did not. I always thought Warrior was one of the most overrated talents that I ever called a match for. His skill set was limited, but he was, he got over, and I guess that's all that matters.
You guess the fans are important? JR does not like Warrior personally and has no idea what the entertainment industry is about, because without the fans, there would be no wrestling shows. Yet JR resents and belittles the fans who cheer for people he doesn't like, and he tries to explain their support for Warrior with silly statements like this.
He got over with smoke and mirrors at one point in time.
Where's the smoke or mirrors here, JR? Is this an illusion we're seeing? That is really Warrior running to the ring, isn't it? Is that really him performing that clothesline? Does JR think they're using trick photography? Is that Warrior press slamming then throwing an opponent over the ropes? Or is that an illusion too? Should we watch for strings, JR? No, the illusion is how JR has to lie or distort things in order to trash wrestlers he doesn't like. And it's fine if you don't like Warrior. But nobody can deny the hard work he put into his character or performances, and the fans support him because they appreciate that hard work. So the question for you, JR, is why can't you appreciate it? Or at least show some respect for the fans who made wrestling a success? The hypocrisy continues for JR as he emphasizes the importance of fan support, if it pertains to Austin.
He's the best there ever was, and his numbers prove it. You can say, well, so-and-so is a better wrestler. This guy was a better technical wrestler. Whatever the hell that means. The bottom line of success for a wrestler is, what do they do to the bottom line?
That's a pretty clear statement, but then when McMahon offers Warrior a huge amount in '97 to return, JR said this.
We weren't despondent over the fact that we didn't get him. So a lot of the guys in the front office, the Pattersons of the world and so forth, maybe even Bruce, knew the limitations of Warrior. You don't replace a Bret Hart with anybody that I know of, sans maybe in Austin, and it worked.
Wait, JR, you just said drawing is the most important thing. Then you try to say how important Bret is, when Bret was one of, if not the, lowest drawing WWE champions ever. So before, JR says, who cares if you're a technical wrestler? It's how much you draw that's important. But then we have Bret, a technical wrestler who couldn't draw, and JR says he's irreplaceable. And it's because Bret is JR's friend, so he doesn't have to draw to be important in JR's mind. It's a pattern that repeats. Here's where he tries to explain why Austin's poor attitude was okay.
Steve was not an easy manage. He was challenging, because even to me, he had questioned the matches. It had to do with what Steve wanted. He was a perfectionist. He wanted to have a great match, not a good match, but a great match. Stone Cold is not going to compromise his character and what he has built in the ring for anybody. So I am a big fan of Stone Cold, always will be forever. I still think he is the biggest star ever in pro wrestling. Steve can dance to his own drum, and I think that is where he is right now. He could do whatever the hell he wants to do, and do it well. So I will always be a Stone Cold fan. And if you are a real wrestling fan, you are always going to be the same like me.
That sounds fine, except it doesn't work that way for every wrestler. Because when it comes to Savage, JR said this.
I've been around talents that had massive egos and didn't trust and weren't fun to work with. I said that before about Savage. He was a legitimate superstar, but he could also be a prick. I hate to say that about the Dead, but Savage was challenging to work with anyway, as he was a perfectionist.
So if Savage is a perfectionist, he's a prick. But if Austin's a perfectionist, it's because Austin wants to have the best match possible. Only in the mind of a hypocrite like JR. But what about Warrior?
Warrior was a guy that had to have Vince as his guy. He felt he deserved that. So dealing with this guy is a massive pain in the ass. He wanted to have a big say. We had nobody in the roster that had that mindset. Nobody that had that mindset that it was, micromanage his own deal. It was a selfish deal. He had to have this. He had to have that. High maintenance.
When Warrior wants to have everything his way, he's selfish. But when Austin has to have everything his way, JR admires that he doesn't want to compromise his character. You see the double standard? JR then went into how awesome Austin's house show numbers were.
Stone Cold impacted the bottom line. I'm biased, which I fully admit, but he was the best I've ever been around as far as drawing money, adding to the bottom line. The house show business, as we called it back then, now live events, nobody could touch him because he wanted to make all the towns, no matter if it was in a small building or the Coliseum. He wanted to be on every card. A lot of the guys in the front office, the Pattersons of the world and so forth, knew the limitations of Warrior. We're not getting a great worker. We're getting an attraction. Attractions to work have to be used sparingly and be made to keep special. So, and as long as you don't try to make Warrior something that he's not, being an attraction, then you might get some sporadic use out of him.
JR thinks Warrior was only over when he was used sparingly. So we're here to see how sparingly he really was used. And to put it in context, here is how Warrior's time with the WWE compares to Austin's time there. Warrior wrestled a total of 805 matches with the WWE, while Austin only wrestled 707 matches. Yes, that means he wrestled 100 more matches than Austin. So it's funny to hear people say he didn't pay his dues. And apparently Austin had to be used sparingly too. But wait, it gets better. When you look at the numbers for Hogan and Warrior, in 1988 Hogan wrestled 91 matches. Warrior wrestled 171 matches. To show he was wrestling almost twice as much. In 1989, Hogan was the champion and wrestled 111 matches. And Warrior wrestled 156 matches. Then in 1990, when Warrior was the champion, Hogan wrestled 83 matches as compared to Warrior's 173 matches. And here is the interesting side note. The most matches per year Hogan ever wrestled for the WWE was 161. So at 173 here, Warrior even tops that. Now in 1991, Warrior was only active for 7 months, so it's not a fair comparison. However, he manages to top Hogan yet again by 4 matches, who was there for the full year. We honestly feel sorry for JR, who can't understand that when the fans want to see someone, you don't use them sparingly. And that's why Warrior made the most money for the company when he wrestled the most matches. But the stone cold truth here is JR's bias. So when he's friends with a wrestler, he wants to see those wrestlers in more matches. Yet when it comes to Warrior, he ignores what fans want to see, or what's best for business, and that bias takes over, causing him to sound foolish with stupid statements. And for the critics who try to claim Warrior was only effective when put in short matches, take a look at these times for some of his top contests. The match with Hogan went for 23 minutes. The match with Savage, 21 minutes for their 91 match in WrestleMania 7. He went for 16 minutes in SummerSlam 89 with Rude, and in 92 went to over 26 minutes with Savage in that match. So he was performing in classics for years, wrestling more than any other top talent in the company.
Stone Cold impacted the bottom line. He could do whatever the hell he wants to do, so I will always be a Stone Cold fan. And if you are a real wrestling fan, you are always going to be the same like me. I'm biased, which I fully admit.
JR is telling the truth for a change, and that bias was on full display for his comments about Austin's success. He says Austin reached the top spot by drawing the most, and by wrestling in so many matches. Yet Warrior outdrew Hogan and wrestled more matches than Austin, and JR won't give him any credit. He says Austin doesn't have to use wrestling moves, but then criticizes Warrior for not using wrestling moves. Here's another. JR understands why Austin refused to work with so many wrestlers, but calls Warrior selfish, even though Warrior never refused to work with any wrestler, and he put over whoever they told him to. So it appears JR wants to have it both ways. Austin changes his name legally to Steve Austin, and JR has no comment about it. Warrior changes his name, and JR ridicules him and says it's weird. But it's not weird when Austin does it, because as JR likes to point out,
Austin can do whatever the hell he wants to do. I'm biased, which I fully admit.
Austin walks out on the company hours before Raw. JR carefully outlines the context of that situation, telling his listeners Austin had injuries and personal problems. However, when Warrior doesn't show up for house shows after his contract was breached, JR is not interested in context, so he never mentions that contract. Instead, he goes out of his way to mislead people. And something else he doesn't like to mention is why Austin had those personal problems. So that brings us to our next example. JR often tells people that he has nothing but respect for Austin, who hits women. But JR also says he has lost all respect for Warrior because Warrior uses improper language in the company of women. So in JR's opinion, it's okay to hit women, but you can't curse around them. Which is funny because Austin's whole wrestling persona was about using foul language. And we're quite sure he uses it around women too. Because why?
Steve can do whatever the hell he wants.
The purpose here is not to attack Austin. But Austin is an excellent example of the hypocrisy. So the purpose is to expose JR's bias against Warrior to counter his cowardly, mean-spirited attacks. Because remember, he had plenty of chances to tell Warrior or any talent to their face how he felt about them, but never did. Now, he won't shut up about it. And his podcast is basically turning into a tiresome session for his insecurity issues where he relentlessly vents about whoever he's not friends with. And that's why, as Warrior says, it's so important to give you these responses.
I never sat back and faulted anybody for whatever skills they had. Right. Anybody. I'm not on the record doing that until people started criticizing me. And I got out of the business and legitimately got on with my life, recognized that wrestling and what I did there was a great chapter in my life, but there were other things I could do. And people just, I don't know, they got offended by that. And I got defensive.
Warrior did not. I always thought Warrior was one of the most overrated talents that I ever called a match for. Stone Cold can do whatever the hell he wants. I'm biased, which I fully admit.
The Warrior response for JR was written in his blog. Yet with the power of AI effects, you now can hear his words, the way only he could say them. So here's what you've been waiting for. Here is this episode's Warrior response.
Jimmy Ross, for the life of me, I don't get what your beef, should I say pork, Jimmy, is with the sane and happy old Warrior man. Of course, I can only imagine that a whole hell of a lot of anal pressure must come with being one of Vince's top asswipes. Yet, still, can I ask, Just when did you get to know me well enough to go on and on about me as you seem so fit to do? Can we substantiate some time period here? Discussions or meetings that were held? Just when did Jim Ross get to know Warrior so well to have these endless opinions about him that he does? All anyone can think of, largely because it is so apparent across the board throughout the entire DVD, is that, again, envy alone provides you, and everyone else for that matter, with the enlightenment and answers. You are obviously jealous of both the fact that I never let Vince have his way with me as he has with you and everyone else, and also that you never had the chance to bend me over either since becoming the mother hen over the talent around about 96 when I was last there. Well now, Jimmy, come on. It's hard to take you so seriously considering prime talent such as myself would never answer to you about anything. I mean, what in the hell would you know about succeeding at the level I did? And here you go on and on to others about how Warrior is so full of himself. Get your head out of the pork and beans, Jimmy. And actually, it is not true that I am full of myself, even when I am arrogantly pounding the broad chest of my own healthy personal self-esteem. No. It is that I am loaded for bear defending how full the Ultimate Warrior persona should be of itself, because it was great and made an impact on the industry like few others. Can we ask, Jimmy, just how many tickets have been sold to people to come and sit in an arena for a wrestling card just so they can see you? Not one. That's how many. Don't even need a damn calculator to do that math. Guys like me who have what it takes to make a persona work, pay your barbecue bill, Jimmy. Your fat ass and your silly 10-gallon cowboy hat were on the plane to the next city on the tour because top talent like me performing Ultimate Warrior bought your ticket. You seem to forget that there was once a better day when talent didn't need their hands held, noses blown or picked, and their asses wiped, especially by a drooling, gotta get closer to those sweaty wrestling bodies feminine cowboy like you. Great talent knew what to do and did it, and they didn't run crying to numbnut writers and out-of-control, head-tripping power freak babysitters like yourself. You, Jimmy, are the one who needs to get a grip, not I. When I talk about the great career of the Ultimate Warrior, I do so with the authority of millions of minds filled with the great on-the-record memories. Yet when you criticize it, your authority comes only from the fact that you have a cubicle at WWE offices and it has gone to your head. The best I can say about you is that you remind of a sodomized Ned Beatty squealing like a pig in Deliverance. How weirdly well it fits, too. My question, you still squeal after all these years, Jimmy? Wherever your problem about me arises from, we may never find out. After all, up there in Stamford, the truth doesn't rank too high on the to-do list. But one thing is for damn sure, and the DVD proves it. It is your unsubstantiated opinions about me and your non-objective animus toward me that are delusional and insane.
We hope that you enjoyed that as much as we did. Please feel free to email us with your thoughts, comments, or questions, nextcenturywrestling@gmail.com, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next show where we set the record straight about how successful Warrior was as WWE Champion to counter another internet lie. And before we go, we want to say how much we truly appreciate all of your YouTube comments and the time you took to write them. So we look forward to seeing those. Plus, we need your help to grow this channel, so if you can, also please hit share so wrestling fans everywhere can enjoy these episodes too, and to restore the positive memories of Warrior. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for everything. We're always here to entertain you. We are Next Century Wrestling.
That's all, folks.
Ha ha!